we have a lot of plant people here and a couple of animal folks as well. Soils represented. Fish. We have fish. So I would love to introduce MarthaMalapi-Wight, and she is a colleague of ours from the USDA and APHIS down in Beltsville, Maryland, or just at Riverdale. Are you in Beltsville? You're in Beltsville. And she has a really interesting history. She got her BS degree in Peru and then came to the US and did an MS degree at the University of Tennessee in virology, then went to Texas A&M to get a degree looking at fungal genetics. And then she was an USDA-ARS postdoc in Beltsville and was sucked away to APHIS to run this program. So she is a program manager for the Poaceae quarantine program. And I think you're really going to enjoy listening to what she is doing for her research. I also, and her job. And I also think that if you're a student and haven't signed up to meet with her, I know Emma has a time at 2 o'clock, is that right? In 1:20, and are you willing to share that if other students would like to?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Anybody wants to come to the topic.
Yeah, so buck out 1:20, and Martha really can talk about how to apply for federal jobs, and there are a number of us who can do that, but Martha has been in the game most recently. Another thing is we will take a group of students to APHIS in May, so we usually do that from our department. You know that I'll open it up to the Microbiome Center, so if you're interested, keep your ears open for that, because we'll do some programming for them, as well as they'll do some programming for us. So without further ado, Martha, thank you for coming up.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Caroline, for the invitation. I was super excited, actually, when she invited me to come here and give a talk about the work that we do at the quarantine. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. I have actually several friends who graduated from this university, and it's the first time that I'm at Penn State, and it's such a lovely city. I'm really enjoying my visit. But today I really want to talk to you about this initiative that we have at the quarantine, which is introducing this new technology, high throughput sequencing for identification of different quarantine pathogens, starting with different viruses. I work for the USDA-APHIS, the Plant Germplasm Quarantine Program, which is located in Beltsville, Maryland, outside Washington, D.C., like around an hour. And before I really jump into the presentation, I want to start with acknowledgements. The wonderful people that I work with and really have produced most of the data I'm going to be presenting today. Starting with Leticia, who is our molecular biologist and the person who the only thing that she's doing right now is library prep for sequencing. Our bioinformatician, Visual Hikari. Roy and Amy are the people who take care of my plants in the greenhouse. Cody and Jennifer are the molecular biologists, which we have here, and are the scientists who are running all the testing in the quarantine. Brad, who is our tissue culture specialist, because when we identify a plant that is infected with a quarantine pathogen, we do not discard it. What we do is actually we clean it up, and then we reintroduce it into the quarantine program for testing. And lastly, Dr. Foster, who is the director of the quarantine, which we have here. He is really the person who created quarantine several decades ago, and he's still with us. So my presentation is going to be subdivided into different topics. First, I want to give a short introduction about USDA and APHIS, especially our organization. Then I want to move into the quarantine program, which I'm going to start referring as PGQP. And I'm going then to talk about the program that I am in charge of, which is the Poaceae or grasses quarantine program. Then I'm going to jump into high throughput sequencing or next generation sequencing and how it's used for plant disease diagnostics, and how we are right now implementing this technology at the quarantine, starting with the profiling of all of our positive controls, the Virome profiling that we have done, some of the validation processes that we're going through, a few novel viruses that we have identified, and how we're using NGS for identification of these sugarcane yellow leaf virus, which is an important virus for the sugarcane industry in the United States. This is the USDA organization chart. So USDA has over 100,000 employees across the country, and this is the budget that it has, $140 billion per year. It is subdivided into 8 programs. One of them is the marketing and regulatory programs, and this is where we're part of. We also have other 3 agencies that actually are part of the same program. APHIS has over 8,000 employees across the country, and our budget is around $1 billion per year. And this is APHIS organization chart. So APHIS is subdivided into 6 groups. We have international trade and support, animal care, plant protection and quarantine, and this is where the quarantine, the program is part of. We also have veterinary services, biotechnology regulatory services, and wildlife services. So I have been with the quarantine close to 3 years now, and I have seen so far for students and postdocs who are interested to apply for positions that most of the plant pathologists and molecular biologists actually work either here in this agency and also in the biotechnology regulatory services. Now, this is mostly a regulatory agency, so they do not have a lab. The labs actually are located here and also here and here. So a brief introduction about the quarantine. We are the largest federal quarantine program in the United States. And basically how it works is that there's a list of plant species, regulated plant species that cannot be imported to the US because they're infected, have been reported to be infected with different pathogens that we do not have here in the country, or different genotypes that we do not have here. But at the same time, there's a need to keep importing this germplasm. For example, if sugarcane industry wants to start a breeding process, a breeding program, and they need a specific variety, they will have to introduce that plant through the quarantine. So the main goal that we have is to protect our agriculture against the entry, establishment, and spread of different significant pathogens. But at the same time, we want to facilitate the safe international movement of different plants for propagation. We provide actually a legal alternative to smuggling, because in that way people can send the plants through us.
I've got a question about that.
Yeah.
So is APHIS allowed to work on cannabis?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of smuggling.
But even though we actually pay for all the cost of processing the plants, there are a lot of smuggling going on. So I received several accessions from rice accessions that they were smuggled and they were caught at the airport. We process different plant genera, prohibited plant genera, over 30 actually, and we import over 700 plant accessions per year. We are free of charge. We actually do not charge our cost to the stakeholders for importing that plant. And the cost to process each plant that we have in the quarantine is over $4,000. The quarantine period, it changes depending on the plant species, and it can be between 1 to 4 years. This is the organization chart of the quarantine. So the quarantine is subdivided into 4 programs. What we have here is the Poaceae program, the one that I manage. I import bamboos, grasses, microbiome research, ornamental plants too, rice, sorghum, and sugarcane. We also have the Vegeta program, which is in charge of potatoes, sweet potato, and cassava importation. We have the POMS program, deal with apples, pears, quinces, and other plants. And then we have the prunus and woody ornamental programs. This is by far the one that has to go through the longest quarantine period, which is up to 4 years. Potatoes is like one year, and the Poaceae is close to 2 years. The 4 programs, we share 2 different labs right now. The first one is the molecular diagnostics lab, where we do all the testing of the plants that we import. We also have a tissue culture lab that is the one in charge of cleaning the infected material, the different therapies and the needs that we have, and then those plants are reinserted into the quarantine. And when I was hired 3 years ago, one of the main tasks that I have was to implement the next generation sequencing lab. And that's what I have been working the last 3 years. A few pictures of the Poaceae quarantine program. What we have here on top are a couple of sugarcane greenhouses, and the quarantine period for sugarcane is 2 years. At the bottom, we have rice. What you have here is that we germinate each rice accession in different tubes with a specific type of medium and different hormones. And after they germinate, we move them to a greenhouse, transplant them, and the quarantine period for rice is 1 year. To give you an idea, I'm just going to show you the overview of one of the quarantine programs, that is the sugarcane. We import the sugarcane as sets. Then they're going to go through a hot water treatment. Then we plant them in our greenhouse. And after a few months, we actually start running all the tests. The first cycle, we run a combination of 21 tests for identification of different quarantine pathogens, which is a combination of molecular different PCR-based tests, serological, bioassays, and also still we do electron microscopy. We harvest the canes, we do more testing, and it's basically at this point where I start getting all the reports from the molecular testing lab. If the plants are negative, so far they have not identified any pathogens, then I approve to go through the second grow out. And then we actually test the plants twice. If we have a plant that is infected with a quarantine pathogen, then we send it to a tissue culture lab for pathogen elimination. I have had the chance to visit different quarantine programs, different countries now, South collaborations, which is a key component of my position. And so far what I'm seeing is that the US is the only quarantine program that actually we test every plant twice. We have to make sure that we are actually not missing any pathogen because of the titer. And that happens. For example, Fiji disease virus, we see that the titer between seasons, spring and fall, is huge. So that's why we test the plants twice, to make sure that we didn't miss anything because of the titer, but at the same time, due to a human error, it happens. So summarizing the sugarcane quarantine program, we are the only quarantine program in the country, the only ones who can import these plants. We protect an average of $1 billion industry. The quarantine period is 2 years. And right now, in my quarantine, I have over 100 sugarcane clones that we have imported from different countries, such as Australia, Argentina, Barbados, Brazil, France, and so on. Highlighting that over 60% of the sugarcanes that we import are infected with a quarantine pathogen. It's really high. Although we ask our stakeholders, please send us clean material that they have been tested in other countries, 60% of them are infected with the pathogen. And most of them are infected with sugarcane yellow leaf virus, which I'm going to talk later about the importance of this virus for the sugarcane industry. To give you an overview of the molecular tests and serological tests that we have run for identification of pathogens, we have, for viruses, we run 12 different types of PCR tests and also some ELISAs. These are the regulated pathogens, viruses that we have to test for. Highlighting that, for example, for yellow leaf virus, we have 3 different tests that we run. And it's because to make sure that we're not missing any genotypes. We also test for Poaceae viruses, Carla viruses, Clostridium, Fiji disease virus, and so on. Then we also test for different bacterium phytoplasmas. For sugarcane, at least we have 2 bacterial pathogens that we have to test for, which are Lexonia cili and Xanthomonas albiginians. And we have multiple tests for identification of each pathogen. And we also test for identification of phytoplasmas. We also run bioassays, electron microscopy for each test, for each accession, each plant, and of course, visual inspection. But if you can see from all these tests, is that they are all targeted for a specific group of pathogens. So the big question that we had was, if we're really missing something, although we are running all these tests, we don't know, for example, we're missing a new genotype that we actually do not have the sequence when we design the primers, or a virus from that country which was not reported, or a virus that actually has switched hosts, and now it's importing grasses which before was infecting sugarcane. And that's the role that now I am playing in the quarantine. That the director hired me to implement the NGS laboratory in the quarantine. So why NGS is important for the quarantine? First, as we know, it requires no previous knowledge of the pathogen that is present in the sample. We can just run one test and we identify all the pathogens that is infected. I don't have to worry about the country of origin of those pathogens were reported or not. We can identify the known and unknown in a single test. Also because the number and type of prohibited plant species keep increasing in the quarantine. So regulation passes, and all the time we have longer lists of quarantine plants that will have to be processed by us. And you can imagine how much it's going to take us to develop all the tests to identify all these pathogens for new plant species that have to go through quarantine. Based on the NGS data, of course, our goal is to develop new diagnostic tools with this new genomics data that we're getting. Down the road, we would like to evaluate shorter quarantine periods because the plan is that as soon as we get a plant, the quarantine plant will sequence it. If it's infected, we send it to the tissue culture lab immediately for cleanup, and that will save us several months of quarantine period. That means free time of the people who are working with us. We also will have more greenhouse space. And then the plant will reintroduce into the quarantine, and still we will run all the conventional diagnostic tests for those plants. There are several other quarantine programs around the world who are introducing this technology, such as Australia, Canada, France, Japan, New Zealand, and others. But so far, as far as I know, none of these countries actually have gone through the process of reintroducing this technology, because we're still working in the policy part, and more importantly, in the validation process. So I was hired at the quarantine, and my postdoc was in genomics, using this tool for the identification of quarantine pathogens, where I worked with Emma, where she was a student, which was wonderful. And she's laughing. I'm sorry, Emma, I should have not said that. But I had to. So I got there, and well, we need to start then implementing the lab, right? That was the first thing. And now I have to say, I'm glad after 3 years now the lab is set up, and we have all the pieces of equipment that we needed to do all the testing and the NGS in-house. So now we have a couple of QIAcubes that we're using for the RNA extraction of the plant material. We also have a few QIAc cells that we're using for a preliminary analysis of the quality of the RNA extractions. Then we bought the Agilent station that is like an improved bioanalyzer. With this is that all the extractions are run and it uses an integrity number because trash in, trash out, right? So we have to start with really high quality of RNA in able to have good sequencing at the end. So that's why this machine is a key component to give us integrity number of the samples. At the same time, after we have made the libraries, give us a specific peak size of the library that we're doing, and that helps us to do the molarity conversion for loading the machine. And this is the one that really took more time to be able to buy because it's expensive. But now we have our Illumina Nexus 550 in our lab. And that's really how I felt when I bought finally this machine. That all the pieces, we finally have the lab set up. So we have the equipment in-house. The next step, after traveling a little bit, analyzing and talking to scientists from different countries, the different methodologies that they were using. So the first step then was to start testing actually this methodology would work for us. And I chose to follow how the Canadians have started doing the validation process, which is first testing all the positive controls, live positive controls that they have in the greenhouse. Because in that way, you know that at least you should be able to identify the same viruses that they have been actually tested with conventional testing. And the methodology that I chose is to do RNA shotgun metagenomics. The libraries that we're using, that we're making are the Illumina TrueSeq RNA, but we're also using the ribosomal RNA to try to sequence less hosts and get more of the pathogen reads.
The good thing about this kit is that it captures choline like polyase, but also non-choline RNAs. And this is important because not all, for example, viruses do have polyase. So that's why I need a kit that will also capture non-choline RNAs. As I mentioned, it depletes most of the plant ribosome RNA versus total RNA-seq. And so far with this technology, we have been able to identify for DNA and RNA viruses. And also we're starting to jump a little bit into identification of mycoplasma. But the goal that we had is that we, in a single run and with this type of libraries, we should be able to identify viruses, phytoplasmas, fungi, and bacteria, all quarantine pathogens. The number of reads that we're going after is quite high because we're sequencing a lot of material, and I want to make sure that we're not missing any virus at this point. So that's why we're going between 25 to 40 million reads per sample per plant accession. The Illumina and the platform that we're using is this, the NextSeq. Right now we're using the high output cartridge, that's the 75, that we can get up to like 550 million reads. And we can run up to 16 samples per run. I know that other different quarantine programs or different countries are loading 24 samples or even more. But I want to start with high number of reads. Slowly, I can just go with lower, but I want to make sure that at least we're going to go through the validation process. And this is the bioinformatics pipeline. Visual was hired 6 months ago, and this is really where we're validating several processes, and the heavy work is on this part right now. But to summarize, we're sequencing the samples overnight. The next day, we do a QA/QC of the reads, then trim them. We put a de novo assembly of the sample of all the reads, and then Visual has created this viral database of different plant viruses of over 83,000 sequences. So then what we do is we align these sequences to the novo, to the assembly that we put together. And then when we get a positive, then we start mapping back the reads individually to each one that we have identified. This is a very simplified version of what we're doing, but Visual is the one who's really working into streamline our pipeline. And also now introducing a pipeline for identification of novel viruses based on motifs. And this is now our workflow, doing everything in-house. So we can do all the sequencing in 5 days now, after a lot of testing and trials and having a good protocol extraction for RNA. But now we can extract, we start with total RNA extraction from plants and pathogens, of course. Then we go to the library prep that we can do it in 2.5 days, samples. Then we sequence it overnight, and then Visual analyze the data the next day. So our workflow now is 5 days for 16 samples. And that's why it's important to have a molecular biologist following again the Canadian quarantine program, who is specialized in the library prep, because it's so expensive and takes so much time to know if a mistake was made. That it's better having 1 or 2 or 3 people specialized doing that than having multiple people just doing different things. So these are some of the results that we obtained. And we create these figures using Taxonomer, which is a software that you can find online. And basically how it does it is it samples some of the reads that you have. But I use it mainly for presentation, because I think that it looks really simplified the plant viruses that we identify, pathogens. I'm not talking about environmental samples, pathogens. So this is our Sugarcane positive control that we knew that was infected with this virus, it's a quarantine pathogen. So it's a dsRNA virus, very strong symptoms, it's distributed in different countries. It's not present, of course, in the US. And we sequenced it, and we were able to identify a single infection of this quarantine pathogen in this plant, similar to what we saw with our PCR results. Another sugarcane that we sequenced is this plant that is infected with yellow leaf virus, a very important virus for the sugarcane industry. It's a luteovirus, it's a single strand RNA, and also these results were confirmed by PCR. But then we also identified that it was infected with a different virus that we didn't know about, which is Sugarcane bacilliform virus, which is a double-stranded DNA virus. We also sequenced several grasses, so we sequenced different species to validate our results and methodology. This is Millennium, and we knew that it was infected with a Poaceae virus, which is ryegrass mosaic virus, consistent with our PCR results.
Could you just mention what that uncultured virus is? So what? The marine virus? Is that what
We have, yes, we're seeing that more often now. We're also seeing the bovine diarrhea virus. Yeah, I make jokes. I feel like I just sick. And somebody's okay, you know, we're talking to friends. This is host, and the same host that is Millennium is a grass. We knew that it was infected with barley yellow dwarf virus, which is a luteovirus that we have here. But for example, we didn't know that it was infected with Millennium virus. We also sequenced other hosts such as sorghum, which we identified that is infected with Sugarcane mosaic virus. We knew that it was infected with Poaceae virus, but we didn't know actually. We thought it was another species, which was very interesting to go to these positive controls that have been in the quarantine for 20 years and to actually see new things that we're discovering that we didn't know that they were infected with. And lastly, we also sequenced some bamboos because we're the only quarantine in the country for bamboo. And we identified that yes, this positive control is infected with bamboo mosaic virus as expected. So overall, we sequenced over 20 positive controls from the quarantine, from my quarantine, the Poaceae program, nothing apples and fruit trees. And we sequenced different species, such as Sugarcane. We also sequenced different grasses because I wanted to make sure that it was independent of the host. We sequenced Cynodon, Miscanthus, Panicus, etc., and also other species like bamboo, sorghum. And this periwinkle is an ornamental plant that we use as a positive control. So far with the methodology and the number of reads that we are targeting, we were able to identify single-strand DNA, double-strand DNA, and also the same for RNA viruses, which is good because there are other shotgun methodologies that other quarantines are using, which they cannot identify really DNA viruses as well. So for us, it is a good time that we actually identify all the DNA viruses that we were targeting and also new ones. We identified all of our known targeted virus, but we also, we were confirmed by conventional testing, but we also identified new viruses that have been added to our positive control rate quarantine, which are here.
So when you identify these new things just through this technique, is there any concern, like, are you doing like kit controls and stuff like that to make sure you're not getting contamination from other sources? These new things you're identifying are actually truly there.
Yes, it's a very good question. And when I'm identifying new viruses, what I do is, and I'm going to talk about it in the next slide, is that a few months later, we go and do a fresh RNA extraction, fresh library prep, sequencing, and then to compare the results. And so far, we haven't got any contamination so far.
Yeah, I guess the thing is though, if it's something that's in the kits, which is a known problem for a lot of these things.
Like extraction kits?
Yeah, extraction kits, or various steps along the way, where if where it's, particularly when it's totally new things that you're identifying, it's important to be very careful that it's not like a kit.
And that's a great point. I think that if it will be a contamination coming from the library prep or the RNA extraction, I should be seeing in more samples.
Yeah.
Not just in one, right? And after we confirm it a few months later and we always see in that one, then that will be a good indication that it's not.
Is there another set of controls that you would recommend?
Well, you can just do the blank without actually having your plant extraction in there. You just basically sequence the kit.
Oh, that's a good idea, yeah.
And then you can subtract that out from like reads that the proportions are kind of like matching what you're seeing there.
Like an area control, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Are viruses common in those kits, or
So this is,
bacteria, or what is it?
I do nothing with virus. This is usually an issue for looking at bacteria. But I could very easily imagine viruses.
Well, when I was sequencing different fungal genomes, I did see that problem a lot. There was a contamination here when you were doing your extractions. There were bacterial cells all over the, you know, you do it under the food and you're so careful, or even coming out of your mouth, so you were using masks. But for viruses, really, the titer has to be so high, the number of reads that we see so high, that we have the coverage that we could be 100,000 eggs, compared to fungal or bacterial genomes that you get if it's a contamination like a lower number of reads. But it's a great point. Yeah,
I just think, especially because you're doing so many reads per sample, the depth of these sequences.
Yeah, great point. Okay, so the next question that I had though was, this is how we started. We did the Virome profiling of all of our samples, and we wanted to see though if we can consistently identify the same viruses regardless of the time of the year. Because if you recall, when I was talking about the quarantine period, we test every sample in spring or fall, and we have to get consistent results. So this is not a validation process that we will do only for this technology, but it's something that we also do if we want to introduce a PCR testing, for example, is that PCR testing, of course, that has to give false positives, but also has to go through the whole validation of doing it through different seasons and years. So we're following the same validation process now for this technology. So the question was if we could consistently identify the same viruses between seasons and years. So what we did is following the same procedure that we do for other type of testing. We sequence different species, plant species, and we follow the same methodology of the library prep and number of reads. So they're just some preliminary results because really the final comparison is we did the final sequence last week and they're being analyzed right now. But for example, we have here Sugarcane, and this is a Sugarcane that is infected with this virus, which is Sugarcane striated mosaic associated virus. And we sequenced it in March 2018 and in April 2018. And we can see that we consistently identified the same virus, and we did not identify any other virus in that plant. But I wanted to know about the DNA viruses. So what we have here, oh, and I forgot to say that what we have on the y-axis is the RPKN, that is the normalization value that is being used for diagnostics, which is reads per kilobase per million map reads. So what we have here are DNA viruses, also from a Sugarcane positive control. And these positive controls are infected with 3 different DNA viruses. We have Sugarcane strict Egypt virus, Sugarcane white streak virus, and also bacteriform virus. So the take-home message is that we were able to identify the same 3 viruses when we sequenced the plant in April 2017, and then the next year in April 2018. So consistent results following what we would do with PCR. Now, what happened between different seasons? We have here a mosaic virus, which is an RNA virus, also Sugarcane. We sequenced this plant in September, February 2018, and April, and we can see the same consistent results. I wanted also to test these with a plant that will have a co-infection, more than 1 virus. We did it with one that has mosaic virus and yellow leaf. Sequenced it 3 times, September 17, February 18, and then April 2018, getting consistent results. Overall, we have done some preliminary validation with different other positive controls in the quarantine, with 1 bamboo, 4 other sugarcanes, and 1 sorghum. Each plant has been sequenced in different times, different years, like these 2, 3, spring and fall, different seasons. But overall, the take-home message from here is that we have been able to do this consistent identification between seasons and between years. And that's something that we need to test, to show, and keep all these data safe when we want to introduce a new test for quarantine purposes. And this is just something really exciting that I saw, and I thought that I'm just going to put this slide here because I was excited when I saw these results. And what we have here is this is one virus, which is Sugarcane mosaic virus, it's a Poaceae virus. And we have 2 hosts infected with this virus, which would give us positive controls. And we have sorghum and sugarcane. And we have sequenced these plants in the spring and fall. And we can see actually how the same virus can behave differently, the number of reads that we get in function of the host. So what we have here is the number of reads that we get, the RPKM sorghum versus sugarcane, and then sorghum in fall versus sugarcane. And that really highlights the importance of doing this validation for each specific program and crop. And that's something that we're doing in the quarantine, also with the vegetable program and fruit program. Really, each pathogen system is different. So the conclusions is that so far we have been able to identify the same DNA and RNA viruses. This has been just a preliminary study, and we have done it between years and seasons. We can identify single and mixed infections, different plant species, sugarcane, grasses, bamboo, and so on. We have been able to identify RNA and DNA viruses, and of course, the number of reads for DNA viruses is much lower, as expected compared to RNA viruses. So that's why we have also, which I have not presented because I didn't have the time, we're doing the read sampling to see what's the lowest number of reads that we need in order to identify DNA virus for Poaceae. Now, talking about, we have sequenced also some fruit trees, and the number of reads that we get between crops is different. So for Poaceae viruses, really we get an extremely hot number of reads, but for fruit trees, it's not that high. So we cannot really lower that number just universally of the number of reads, because we might be losing some of the pathogens. And I think that this is kind of what we, following your question, we now know that we have a few monsters, these viruses that when actually we sequence it, it contaminates everything because of the really high number of reads, which is, for example, bamboo mosaic virus, sugarcane streak, Bermuda grass Latin virus is just a nightmare. But then we have to do the cleanup through different, when we're actually processing the reads, we have to change the parameters for us to just keep out those reads from the contamination. But it's a learning process, actually. And because of these viruses, now we're bleaching the machine an extra time before runs. So that's something, and we're using different indexes. So run this week, we use indices A, next week we do B, and A and B, and so on. So in that way, we cannot mix our indices. And also, the next seed actually comes with a well that has the bleach, right? The automated bleach wash. But in Italy, like last year, they were talking about adding these 3 washes. That will be 1% bleach, 0.1, and then just water. And by doing this triple wash, really helps to get any type of contamination out from it. So those are little tricks that we're learning throughout the process. And this is the ongoing experiment that we are running right now, that I have sequenced all positive controls 6 months apart. Every single one of them just have this clean data, and all of them have been we did an RNA extraction that was sent to the NGS lab. By the same time, an RNA extraction by microbe, especially different people of the plant, they were sent to the molecular testing lab. So we're doing all this validation, to get a high throughput comparison of the sequencing data we're getting. Well, it's 11:42. So I'm going to talk about a couple of novel viruses that we have identified. For example, in Miscanthus sinensis. And this is a plant that is used for biofuel research, for example, but it is also a very closely related plant to sugarcane. So sugarcane breeders actually use this plant to give resistance to sugarcane against yellow leaf virus, which is an important virus for the industry. So we received this Miscanthus plant showing these symptoms. You cannot see really, but we see these specks here that is very, very characteristic of viral infections, but the results were inconclusive. So yellow leaf has actually been they reported to induce disease in sugarcane and also in sorghum, but not in scampus. So we sequenced it, and what happened is a new virus that is very closely related to yellow leaf virus. And now I have sent this virus to be characterized to USDA-APHIS in Belleville, because we cannot really regulate based on the sequence. So we can find all the sequences we want, and make sure that all of you are doing it. But we can only regulate if we prove that there's disease. So for that, the person has to run phosphate, do a phosphate analysis, and so on. That's something that I cannot do in my lab, and that's why I'm establishing collaboration with different labs. But the importance will be that if actually we release this material infected with a wild bee and they use it for breeding purposes to manage what it costs. We're talking about a $1 billion industry. Another novel virus that we found is switchgrass. Which is used for ethanol production, soil conservation. It's an ornamental plant too. And we see really, it's funny, when the prices of that oil goes up, then people start to request import more of different grasses for biofuel research. We actually got this plant from Europe, and we saw these symptoms, and all our testing were coming negative. We have no clue what was wrong with it. So that was one of the first plants that we sequenced when I actually came to the quarantine. And PCR testing was negative. The plant came from Europe, and what we identified is that it's a novel master virus. It's a DNA virus. It has not been reported in Europe. It has not been reported in the US. And now, for example, one of the questions I have is that can it affect yield? Could it affect other grasses? Because we're seeing some viruses that only affect sugarcane, and now they're affecting sorghum, and they're affecting different type of grasses, the Poaceae family. So this plant now this virus is being characterized by the University of Maryland by Pathologist. So it's 11:45, and I think I'm going to have to skip the sugarcane yellow leaf virus. Lack of time, really. I'm just going to jump into the last slides. So summarizing to date, we purchased our equipment, our sequencer, and we were able to start making our libraries in June of last year, 2017. So it has been a year and a half. And today we have sequenced 175 plants from the Poaceae quarantine program. Of course, that includes our positive controls. From these 175, 79 are in sugarcane, 11 are bamboos, 63 grasses. We have also sequenced all the rice accessions that we imported this year, and we identified 2 novel rice viruses that right now we're going to collaborate with the lab to do the biological characterization, and also a couple of sorghum plants. I briefly talked about some of the validation process that we're doing in the quarantine, but we're really doing a lot more, and the validation process really is going to take us, I think, several more years. And that has to be done also by our quarantine programs. So the goal that I have is, I have now developed the protocols, methodology working. We have now a good SOP of how to sequence samples, and now I have given that to the food tree program for the scientists to validate that protocol, those protocols for this program. So we are testing side by side multiple seasons and crops, and this is something that it keeps coming up when I'm attending these regulatory meetings with different quarantine programs, is that NGS is really going to replace any technology. So what we're going to do is that NGS also has to be validated by a PCR or by ELISA, that we cannot just rely on the NGS data to release a plant. So it's going to help us, but still everything that we do has to be also tested side by side by PCR and ELISA.
And that's true even for these unknowns?
No, but part of the project for them to develop good PCR partners that we're going to introduce. Yeah. Something that I have not talked about is that we're also sequencing different types of tissue. So far, the quarantine, we basically test the leaves. So when the plants are picking up, we harvest the leaves and then we start all extractions and testing. But a few months ago, we got a shipment from Brazil, and I was very excited. So I got some canes before the crop specialist actually planted the plants. We did total RNA extraction, and I saved those extractions. And a few months later, we did RNA extraction from the leaves, and then we sequenced both samples. And it was really exciting that we got actually the same viruses from both samples. But of course, that is preliminary analysis, and I would like at a certain point that really we stop testing from leaves and just doing as soon as we get the plants from the sets, from the stem, because that will save us time. But that's something that is going to take us some time still. We have sequenced all the positive control from the program, spring and fall, 6 months apart, and we're analyzing the result. We are also in the process of adding a positive control, follow what you said, because some really good point that we need to add controls for the runs. So we are adding, but we're still processing how we're going to do it. We have done the spike in, which is it's really a mix of 92 transcripts and different molarities of each one of them, and different sizes from 200 to 2,000, 273 to 2,000. And we add the transcripts after we have extracted RNA. So we make libraries with it, and then we sequence it. So it's a positive control for the library prep, of course, because we should be able to identify it, but also for the bioinformatics pipeline. So we have added the RNA spike into a few runs right now, and it's working well. And the limit of detection based on our pipeline is 2 transcripts right now. This is really expensive. So they say it's more expensive than gold. Yeah, but we'll see. Data analysis, and that's really, we just started. I feel comfortable in the lab doing the libraries and sequencing because that's my background, but I'm not a bioinformatician. So now that we have hired our bioinformatics scientist, he's the one who's really working on the development of the pipelines. And we are testing different things like read mapping strategies, different assembly methods, of course. Some people say subtract the host, and other people say don't subtract the host. You lose some DNA viruses. We have compared both results, and so far we're not subtracting the host sequencing reads. The validation of the databases, looking for different motifs, and we're also now validating the result with the PATH scope. So this is my last slide, and really the yes.
What does it mean to validate the PATH? I don't understand.
So this is a software and a pipeline that the Canadians are using, and right now what we're doing with Visho is that he's analyzing each run with different pipelines. So we have different columns of results, and we're adding that one, and we have to make sure that the results are consistent with the pipelines. Hopefully at one point, currently I will be able to just use one, but right now we're in the validation process. So yes. That's a great question. So roughly we have, so we're doing RNA-seq with ribosomal depletion. So what we're using is a transcriptome, then of the host. We're not using the whole genome, right? Now, to get a whole transcriptome profiling, as we know, we would have to get tissues from different times of the year, life cycle, because that's how they have published the transcriptome of the host. But with what we have, and we only are harvesting at that specific moment, my average for sugarcane is 50%, 40 to 60. I have not done it honestly for bamboos and also for other grasses. I have just started with sugarcane.
And for now, you are not excluding primates for
Yeah, we're using everything. And when you go to these meetings, there are some labs who swear that they have compared the result that they're not missing any viruses. And then you see our papers and presentations and people say you're losing a lot of viruses. So at this point, we are using everything.
Are there any thoughts to how to do it yourself or collaborate look at that host side and see if we can learn anything about how the host
See?
is. Oh, I
Here, yes, that's one of the main reasons I'm here. We can publish, actually. In APHIS, we are not accepted for publishing. Of course, that we will have to donate the name of the stakeholder, maybe the country of origin, but that data is available. And then one of the main reasons I'm here is because we really need all the help we can. We are learning, we're starting. So anybody who's interested to get these reads and reanalyze them in some way, I will be more than happy to talk to you.
Database is open, public,
The database of,
virus database, that's the big-
I mean, I'm happy to share it, some of it, because most of them came from the Canadians, and we have no viruses there, and they asked me to please don't share those with anybody. But the ones that we are just uploading, and yeah, of course, but not the ones that I need. So the take-home message is that USDA, the quarantine program, we're the largest federal plant quarantine program in the U.S. and the only one that imports several prohibited plants. USDA-APHIS hires a lot of people. It's every week we're hiring people because we are an emergency agency. So compared to ARS, where I ended up my postdoc, which is difficult to open permanent positions, that's not the case with APHIS. So for students and postdocs, it's an option just to look at it. Now, highlighting that the positions are only open for a week, and I'm not kidding. So it's taking, for example, a year and a half to get the funding and approval to hire another molecular biologist, but they only advertise it for 5 days, and I have nothing to do with it. So when I was applying for jobs, when I got serious, and when I was finishing my postdoc, I actually set up an alert to get messages every day. Because when I was doing weekly, I'm like, I missed it. You know, that thing closed a few days before. And it's not because we have somebody in mind, or that's why it's open for a few days. That's how it works. Well, really, the take-home message for here is that we are looking forward to introducing technology that is going to be used for routine quarantine testing. Very happy that actually this year we sequenced for the first time all the sugarcanes that we imported from overseas for this fiscal year by Metagenomics, which for me at least was a happy day that we were able to do it. And the goal that the director of the program is to really test every single plant that we sequence, that we import by the quarantine, the 700 plants from the 30 different plant genera. And that is going to be something that is going to strengthen our quarantine testing. And with that, thank you very much for inviting me here, and it has been a pleasure. I don't know if there are any other questions.
For those viruses that have low concentration,
Mm-hmm.
instead of like using a nice PCR for detection.
So we really don't, you're talking about PCR testing, right?
Mm-hmm.
In general. So at this point, with the viruses that we are targeting, we know exactly where to collect them from, even when we have like a very low titer. So I don't have an issue anymore to releasing a virus, but I do know that sometimes in that virus, the titer is really, really low, so I have to be extra. But we run next to PCR, for example, to find the plastic. Yes.
Actually, maybe two questions. What was the read length on the sequence?
That's a great question. Right now, to make it cheaper, I'm using 75. I have not compared 75 versus 150 and so on. I have a few cartridges that I'm sending when I find something cool new that is going to be longer reads with a better genome assembly. But at least for viruses, 75 is working pretty well.
Yeah, that was my second question. If you decide to like start applying this like bacteria or fungi, do you think you'll need to do longer read lengths, or you can maybe sequence?
That's a great question. What I'm thinking is that we're going to develop really probes for fungi and bacteria. That's how Mycoplasma. That's how we're going to go. So we're going to have to find 20, 30 probes per targeted pathogen and we go with that. Based on what I have talked with people from Oklahoma State, we 75 should be enough. But it's a great question. I think that once we start doing it, we might have to change a little bit the sequencing methods. Yes.
So between enzymes, 75
Genotypes?
different virus genotypes.
No.
Just like 75.
No, because really, we get, for Poaceae at least, the one I'm working with, right, we get 120,000 reads, for example. So you can imagine the coverage from there. So 75 is not a problem at all.
And another question related is F1, I think you said F1 is Sugarcane, when you have low number of reads.
Yes, that's something that we have started seeing.
I do what?
No, but and that's why each pathologist and scientist from each program will have to validate that technology. Because even as we know, we get the results and we get the e-values and the number of reads mapped and so on, but then you have to jump into really see the biology and understand how that data can be translated. But what we have seen so far is that for potatoes, sweet potatoes, I'm sequencing cassava for the first time next month. But potatoes, sweet potatoes, and Poaceae is very clear. You know, the number of reads for RNA virus is extremely high, but for fruit trees is not the case. And we see this consistently with it. I think that we have sequenced 50 something samples from the fruit trees. So the RNA, so the level of the RNA virus is the same level of my DNA virus. If that makes sense. Why? I have no clue. Yeah.
That was from where?
Yeah. All over. All over.
I'm from Brazil. We have a lot of cassava and
I'm from Peru.
Okay, I know maybe you cannot say.
So one of the things that we've been talking about for our Poaceae is talking about in the spring semester running a set of workshops where we would actually take a data set from beginning to end process. We've been talking about, well, what data set and how. So Martha and I this morning talked about they've got many data sets. And in fact, since they're allowed to publish them and they're looking for help with bioinformatics, there's potential for us to work on those data sets and publish them in a workshop. And so, yeah, so it's an interesting idea. We also have faculty on the campus who are in the same place, and that might be an interesting way for people to get their work done in a lot of different ways. So we may be working on some of these, and I hope you guys are excited about the possibility of publish as well as your own data. And I think it's interesting because I think different data sets offer different challenges, and having a group of us working on this. And for those of us who are absolute neophytes, right, it'll be really useful for me to see, well, keep your eyes peeled. That's what Mara is working on as a side project. Or talk about broader impacts. Yeah, it's very good. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.